Welcome to Beyond the Helmet. I'm your host, Steve McGrath, and in this episode, I'm pleased to bring you my conversation with Lofa Tatupu. Now, this conversation was really special to me because I grew up very much looking up to Lofa. He went to high school a couple towns away from where I did, and when I was in high school, he was in the NFL. So he very much represented what it meant to make it out of small town Massachusetts, where he would then go on to UMaine, become an All-American at USC, and become a Pro Bowl linebacker for the Seahawks. But he showed me that it was possible. So him taking the time to talk about his journey truly does mean a lot to me. And I do also want to give him the opportunity to talk about what he's doing now, which is Zonein CBD. He started his own company to produce the best CBD products possible, and he spent years working to fully vet, get the best product out there, something that he will stand by. And now that it's available, as it just launched this past year, I would highly recommend, if you are in the market for anything that CBD can help you with, whether that's stress, trying to recover from injuries, as it helped Lofa tremendously with the concussions and surgeries that he's had to go through during and after his career, check out Zonein. Now, before we get to our story with Lofa, I do need to remind you all that we're brought to you by Team Builder. And Team Builder works with over 500 high school football programs nationwide, as well as colleges and the NFL. So if you're trying to tweak your weight room program, even if you already have one in place, go to Team Builder. Use the promo code VICTORY, and you're going to get a free gift. VIQTORY, of course. Now, without any further ado, here is Lofa Tatupu in Zonein CBD. All right, I am pleased to be joined by Massachusetts high school football legend, Lofa Tatupu.
My man, thank you for having me.
And obviously, Lofa, you have many more accolades to your name, All-American, you're from your time at USC, an absolute monster in Seattle, being a Pro Bowl, All-Pro linebacker. But growing up in this area at Foxborough, Mass, we heard back in, 06, 07, 08, when I'm there, the rumors of this kid that was just a do-it-all, everything, just beast of a player at King Philip Regional High School. So from the jump, man, because it meant so much to us in high school, knowing that someone just a town over could be tearing it up on the NFL level. Can you take us back to what it was like back in the day? Did you have always this aspiration of playing obviously on the biggest stages?
Yeah, absolutely. My dream of playing football started when I was 7. And my parents say it was even earlier than that. But from what I remember, that was the first year of playing, and it was like my dad's second or last year that he was playing, and so I got to watch a lot of his games. And I'll never forget being at Sullivan Stadium. We were up in like the 300 section, and my dad just laid somebody out on a kickoff, and I just saw the whole stadium just erupt. And guy next to me spilling beer everywhere, and he's just like, "Your dad's the man, the effing man." And I was like, "Man, I'm gonna be the man one day." And it was just I remember it like it was yesterday. It's just from that day on, it was like, I am going to make the NFL, and nothing's going to stop.
Yeah, I can only imagine that's a scene too easy to picture. But speaking of your dad, because as I said, from Foxborough, we had heard that the legend, because at the time, right, that the Patriots are just getting into their dynasty, but before that, there really wasn't too many good Patriot memories to look back on. It wasn't exactly the model franchise pre-Brady, but Mosey Tatupu was one of those guys. Everyone knew who he was, but the fact that one of those legends was actually working in our school system, it was your family namesake was something that meant a lot to us in the area. But as I was doing my research, I happened to come across that this guy with the last name Hasselbeck also grew up in the Massachusetts area because his dad played for the Patriots as well. I know I'm kind of jumping ahead here, but at what point did you ever realize that Matt and Tim Hasselbeck, particularly Matt, since you played with them, kind of had a very similar upbringing and experience when you two were playing together by the time you got to Seattle anyway?
Yeah, no, I very, I knew the Hasselbeck since I was a little kid, and I played. They have a younger brother, Nathaniel, who was a phenomenal athlete too, and and he played at Boston College and UMass, and so we competed a lot against each other growing up. He was the same age as me, and so very familiar with them. And Don, their dad, Matt, Don, and my dad lost Super Bowl 20, and me and Matt lost Super Bowl 40. So it's
Oh,
just
Super Bowl
eerie.
60 shaping up.
Yeah. Well, hopefully Hasselbeck or Tatupu's in it, right? Because third time's a charm. But yeah, so I'm very familiar with them. Phenomenal, human beings. Blessed to know them, and I still keep in touch. I just texted Matt yesterday. It's funny that he came up. He does an autograph challenge on his Instagram, and it's probably one of my favorite things to do because it's like all these old, autographs that I have somewhere too, but it just brings up a lot of nostalgia and memories from playing days.
Oh, I can only imagine. That's a funny. Sadly, I have to admit that I did not follow Matt prior to having this conversation, but I'm going to have to make sure I jump on that bandwagon.
Yeah, give him a follow.
Now, because we mentioned your father, obviously with his NFL pedigree, you having that aspiration at an early age, and the fact that you got to watch him in the stadium. How much was he able to help you just along the way, whether it's actually training or just navigating the space of, how to decide where you want to go to school, navigating how to get to the NFL?
Yeah, well, he very instrumental in everything. I mean, always helping me get better, whether it was film study or, really teaching me because I played quarterback and middle linebacker in high school. So he had pointers from each side of the ball. And it was just huge. I mean, football was what we bonded over. He played, but there was even sometimes where he would just be like, "Man, don't you ever think about anything other than football?" And I was like, "No, I don't." And it's just something. It's in my blood naturally from him, and I'm grateful for all the time that I got to spend learning from him. And I feel like that was really having a father that went through all the situations. He went through the recruiting process. He went through getting drafted. He went through free agency. He went through everything. So it wasn't really the first time for me. I feel like I grew up in the locker room. I feel like I went to the field. I've been to meeting rooms. So where a lot of guys, they might, it's the first time, kind of like not know what to expect. I felt very familiar and very comfortable with my surroundings, regardless of where I went for a film room or meeting. It's like, I belong here. And I mean, I had to earn my way, but I felt like I belonged from the get-go.
That's awesome. Yeah, confidence, right, the entire way. Now, I have to ask, though, because before you tear it up at USC, you go to UMaine, and yet nothing against UMaine, but obviously it's a very big jump. I mean, just going from high school football to
Better
UMaine.
not say anything against UMaine.
Hey, listen, if I'm still living in the New England area, I'm not going to disparage any of our teams, even though I'm a UMass guy. So, how do you, because I mean, UMaine's a big deal up here for you to be a Massachusetts high school football player. How did you, because you just said quarterback, linebacker, you're obviously playing both sides. What's your pathway to ultimately get to Maine?
It's kind of a wild story. I wasn't heavily recruited out of high school. Really, there was like maybe 5 teams that were even interested in offering a scholarship. 3 of them were Division I, UConn, Temple, and Rutgers. They wanted me to play quarterback. And
Oh, wow.
I was looking around the NFL because that was the ultimate goal. I didn't see many 5'11 quarterbacks, so I kept looking, and I was like, hey, there's a lot of 5'11 linebackers, Zach Thomas, Dat Wynn, Dexter Coakley, London Fletcher. I was like, I could do this. I got a chance. And so, that was the first probably business decision that I made. And then it came down to Maine and Northeastern, right there in Boston. And so, because UMass told me, they'd give me a half scholarship, and I was like, I can't afford that. So I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna go to Maine. You're gonna see me now, probably for the next 4 years. At least that's what I thought. But yeah, it was really just knowing that the NFL was my the end game, my goal, my dream. That I knew I had to go play linebacker. If that was going to be the way I made it. So didn't really get recruited, but it didn't matter. One school gave me a scholarship, and all I need is a chance, and that's what I always say: just give me a chance, and I'll show you. And with that in mind, I packed my bags and headed up to Orono.
And, and so, of course, you have success. At the high school level, you're able to get a D1 offer. But can you just, because this always blew my mind, to go from UMaine to USC? I mean, again, nothing against UMaine, but you're literally going to a perennial top one team. I mean, they're literally one of the three best, particularly at that time. Uh, so how does one, A, bust that door open to get in there? But like, that's just, it's the other side of the country. It's it's just wild to me. So can you just unpack that story?
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll talk about Maine before I can get to SC. I spent my freshman year there, and I was a backup for like the first 6 games, and then the starter in front of me got hurt, and I got to get my first chance, and I split reps, and in that game, so I played half the game, but I came out of the game against URI with 9 tackles, 2.5 sacks, and a bunch of tackles for loss, which isn't bad for a game, but that was only a half's worth of stats. So
Right.
you can imagine at this point, I'm feeling myself a little. I'm pumped up, but the starter comes back, and so we're splitting time, and it's tough to get a rhythm, but you make the most of your opportunities. And I continued to play well. And when we got to the end of the season, even though I only started or played probably half the season, I ended up with, in first or second in almost all the major statistical categories. And so with that, and at the time I was 215 pounds. So, strength and speed wasn't an issue. There's a lot of great players at 1AA. Brian Westbrook played against him there at Villanova. It's just a matter of an opportunity. And, so that's why a lot of us ended up at 1AA, but there's still players everywhere making it in the NFL from 1AA. So with that in mind, I didn't know if the NFL was promised to me. I knew it was still my dream, and I was going to pursue it, as long as I could. But I knew that for a guy like me, 5'11", 6 feet, 235, 4'8", 40, you're going to have to prove it on the biggest stage at Division I before you get the chance to get drafted or even an invite to an NFL squad. So with that in mind, I told my parents, I was like, hey, I enjoyed my time thoroughly here, but I think I've outgrown it. And no disrespect, meant when I say that, but I was like, I think I owe it to myself to go do this at Division I, or else I won't get looked at, for the NFL. So sent out tapes everywhere. Oregon initially offered me a scholarship, and that's where I was expecting to go. And without my mom and my sister, they were all in San Diego. It was just me and my dad back in Massachusetts. So I didn't really care where I went. I just wanted to play D1 ball. That's how much football meant to me. So one tape landed in Pete Carroll's office, and I guess his linebacker coach, and then the fullback coach, who he was, or the running back coach, who's Kennedy Pola. He's at the Vikings now, the running back coach. They both told Pete, hey, you should probably take a look at this film. And so Pete did. And when I flew out to San Diego to, see my mom before I thought I was flying up to Oregon to sign my letter of intent, my dad's like, hey, we got to take a stop. I was like, where? He's like, we're flying at LAX. And I was like, okay, that doesn't make sense, but whatever. So we go up to LA and we just stop at the campus. And I'm like, why are we at USC? And I'm starting to kind of put it together, like, what is going on here? And I guess they wanted to see me in person. And so I'm walking around the campus, taking a tour. It's unbelievable. You go into Heritage Hall, you see the Heismans, you see all the, the jerseys and everything, all the trophies. It's like, it's the big times, man. That's when it dawns on you. It's like, wow, this is real. And then I go up to the top. I guess all the coaches were meeting and watching the film, and Pete Carroll's right there, and he's like, I understand you're headed to Oregon. And I was like, I'm supposed to. And he said, if I give you a scholarship, will you take it? And at the time, Oregon was on top. SC they had just finished a 6-6 season. So I did like a little quick, business analysis in my head. I was like, okay, well, I don't know how much time I'll get playing at Oregon, but I could probably eventually get some time in on this roster. And I'm going to be there. My mom's going to be able to come up to all the games. I was like, yeah. I was like, you offered me a scholarship, I'll take it. He goes, congratulations, you're a Trojan. Then we shook hands, and then I turned, and that was like probably one of the few times I remember my dad saying, "Hey, man, I'm proud of you." And I was like, "Oh, okay, I did something."
Talk about buying in at the right time. So Pete Carroll had just gotten there, is just getting his program set up, and you're able to ride the wave just before it takes off. I mean, what Carson Palmer, Matt, it would take an hour to list off every person that you played with there, because there's that many guys that were like, first round picks, let alone guys that made it to the NFL. So just you get the break, your mentality when you get there, though. Not that I would imagine that you were cut off or felt like, you had to, do something crazy to, really make it, because you're a confident guy, of course. But talk about just elevating your game, because you didn't just like, oh yeah, I'm going to transfer and I'm a part of the team. You did damage at USC. I mean, you're an All-American your senior year there. Can you just talk about how you're able to level your game up to be the best linebacker in college football?
Oh yeah. Instinctually, I feel like that was something I was blessed with, but the fine tuning of my game came from my years at SC. Had Nick Holt, Pete Carroll, who had been in the NFL for many years, so you got that knowledge, and that really sets you up for success at the next level. And then you also got Nick Holt, who he's coordinator at Purdue right now. He was my linebacker coach, and I mean that guy. He taught me that the game, it's a numbers game, and and percentage based, and how when you look at a formation, they can tip their hand, and when you can take your shot, because knowing when to take the shot is just as important as taking the shot. There's some guys that just out there freewheeling it, but no, you gotta know where your help is. And so when you calculate all those things in, like, it really just, your game takes off to a whole nother level. And the more you know about the offense, the easier it is. And so that's what, one of my favorite things about when I was coaching, the Hawks, was just seeing that light bulb go off in guys' head, like, oh, that they see it. They see the vision the way you see it, and how you're in there talking ball the way you talk ball. So that really, I've always put more pressure on myself than anybody ever could. And I feel like, the best of the best, that's just how they operate. I even did a radio interview the other day that I never left the field feeling like I played a great game. I had some good games, but I'm never going to say they were great, because that's the mentality, that you always got to get better. And it could have always been better. My best game, we revisited the Philly game where 14 tackles and 3 interceptions. And all I could think about was the drop pick and the missed sack that I had after. I did the interview after the game, and I was just livid. And I mean, you should be happy, right? But that was always the mindset. So going in with that, I just fine-tuned my game with the coaches I had there. Rocky Seto, another phenomenal coach, and Ken Norton Jr. was my linebacker coach my junior year too. So, I was very blessed. It's about being in the right situation. So I had all these, tools and assets around me in terms of knowledge of the game. Ken Norton won 3 Super Bowls in a row, man. Like that. That middle linebacker, that guy knows what it takes to be a champion. And it's no coincidence that we won 2 championships the 2 years that I was there.
Yeah, and I believe it was "Leave No Doubt." That was the slogan back then. I mean, I think you guys went out and did that, and as a team, let alone you as a player.
Well, so that's what, we lost one game, 25-1 in 2 years that I was blessed to start there. We lost in triple overtime to a guy by the name of Aaron Rodgers. And and it took, he's doing okay, last I heard. It took 5 turnovers. We literally beat ourselves. Hats off to them. They played the game of their life. I think they might have won 5 games, but they were better that day. And, from that point on, I mean, we just went on a tear. And then at the end of the season, okay, we won a share of the national title, but LSU has the crystal ball. And, we got together as a team and we weren't celebrating the split national title. We were eyes on the prize saying, hey, we're going to be, we're running the table next year. And we did, man. And then that last game was probably the most fun, you could have in a championship game.
Now, you've already listed some of the coaches and the players, of course. So incredible talent on both the players on the field and the coaches themselves. Can you put your finger on anything in particular about what made that team so special? With culture, anything that's just kind of intangible?
Yeah, absolutely. You said it right there. Culture. You know, Pete brought in guys that love football. And, on top of that, they love and care for the guy next to them. It was a group of leaders. Think about it this way. My greatest accomplishment in the NFL, and I'll always say this, I played 6 years, I was a six-time captain.
That is awesome.
I wasn't even a captain at SC. So you talk about some strong leaders. I mean, we had, Sean Cody, one of my roommates, Matt Grudegood, a guy that doesn't get talked about enough. This guy was 5'9", 5'10", 215 pounds, and he would run through linemen, like flat backing them. We had lead liner, Reggie, Mike Williams. There was just leaders at every position. And when you're going against the best, it just brings out the best in you. And so that culture was huge. And you just kept, when you win, there's nothing better. And it's just when you get the appetite, as we did in 2003 for a championship, and that's all you seek after that. And when I got to the NFL, my first year we went to the Super Bowl, like it's just, that's the feeling. That's what you're chasing. And, at least that's what I was chasing, was that Super Bowl, man.
Oh yeah. And I feel like I've already talked about USC, too much already, just in the interest of time. So just to skip ahead reluctantly anyway, that Super Bowl, the first year that you're in the NFL, what is it, got, like, you're on a team with Walter Jones, you're a Hall of Fame player who's chased that moment his entire career, and boom, rookie year, you're already there. What was it like for you guys? Because I believe Walter had, because he had come on the podcast before, talked about Mike Holmgren saying, if you guys buy in, I'm going to get you there. Obviously he did. So what was that ride like to go from the level of success you had in college to right off the bat be that close to the pinnacle in the NFL?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing I remember the most, which was tough, was my first game was the first loss I had in 2 years. We lost to the Jaguars down in Jacksonville. And now, of course, I'll talk about the journey, because that's what it was all about. But, that really, I was in my locker, like, crying. Like, everyone's like, what's wrong? And, I was like, yeah, that's the first game I lost in 2 years, man. I haven't had this feeling in 2 years. Like, can you comprehend or fathom that? And, and I saw a lot of others taking the loss, just as tough. So I was like, hey, from that, I go, we're going to be just fine. I told, hey, I'm going to be fine, first of all, but I just had to, like, really, sit there and think about that fact, that how blessed I was to win, and how you can't take that for granted, man, because wins are hard to come by, especially in the NFL.
Of course.
But yeah, I mean, Holmgren, he had taken the Packers, a couple of times. I mean, so, he knows how to do it. You just have to know your role. And, it was one of the most fun years of football I ever had. It was similar to a lot of the times that I had at SC. Just, guys bought in, and they believed in what we were doing, in the goal, in each other. And that's the biggest thing that stands out was, we had just like SC, a bunch of great guys that love football and love, working together.
Absolutely. But when I look, so you Pro Bowl first year, second year Pro Bowl, third year Pro Bowl. I mean, it's one thing for a young guy to come in, great season off the bat, kind of a flash in the pan, but we've already talked about just your laser-like focus on chasing your dream. But how do you, it's one thing to get to that level, it's another to stay at that level. What would you attribute to you getting that level of success where you go from All-American at USC to the next year you're a Pro Bowl player, and for you to, 4 years essentially in a row, even if it's at two different levels of play, you're the best, in the world at what you're doing. Can you just speak to how you are able to maintain that consistent high performance?
Yeah, just I was blessed to not have injuries, I'll say, because that's ultimately what led to the shortening of that run on success. But when you have a vision, which I did since I just try to picture this, if you will, this vision as like since I was 7 years old, I set out to play in the NFL. So I had 17, 16 years to really think about what it was going to look like, what it was going to feel like. Because I'm very big and believer in visions, and otherwise, if you don't have a goal and what it looks like, how are you going to get there? And so
Right.
I set out anything I do just to be the best at it, and just it's a continually learning process. And I think that was the coolest thing was when I did get into coaching was I got a glimpse into Pete and how he operates. And it's very similar because, people that like to win, they continually find ways to win and fine tune their game to just keep getting better. So that's essentially, how it was my dreams, this is how I wanted my future to look. And it took shape with the thoughts and the vision that I set forth for myself.
Yeah. And yeah, again, I'm sorry to hit fast forward here, but in the interest of time, you are, like you had alluded to, you're not able to sustain that ultimately because of health and staying healthy. So at one point I had seen that you said you had 8 football related surgeries on top of concussion. So I'm sure this happened kind of 2008 and on.
I think like 6. Really, concussions probably 5 actually, and I had a couple in college that weren't as severe. But yeah, I mean that my superpower, if you will, was kind of the mental capabilities or the fast processor. That's what I had over people. Is that okay? I see what you're trying to do. I know what you're trying to do. Now I can not only do my job effectively, but I'm going to get everybody else. I'm going to just tell everybody else what the play is coming. And now that they know the play, you're going to watch this freak of nature outrun you, outjump you, and outhit you. Whereas, I was just like, okay, I'll meet you at the ball. But so with, I didn't realize until when you're in the eye of the storm, you don't really know that you don't see a way out, right? And so I had cognitive deficits that were lasting or lingering from the concussion since 2006 and even 5 surgeries. I'd already had 3 by then, and then I had another 5 after that. So, and I hate excuses. You're not gonna hit, but when you're already too small, too slow, too whatever, and your weapons start getting taken away from you, mainly the mental aspect, which was the hardest to feel with, because there's like a mind-body connection, if you will, that a lot of athletes talk about, right? And that was not firing on all cylinders. It was very disconnected. So I remember being in a game once and they threw it. I told everybody, yeah, it's a toss. Here comes the toss. And I'm not moving in the direction of the toss because I'm looking down and I'm like, yeah, I had to tell my leg, like, yo, like, let's go. And so that's how interrupted the pattern of, sending signals and, transmitting, all that information. It was that far gone. And I didn't realize it until years later. But yeah, that had been going on since probably my rookie and second year. And when you're having success, nothing gets questioned, right? Like
Right.
Nothing gets brought up, nothing gets talked about. But yeah, so then ultimately ended up with all those surgeries, and it was always kind of like you see Luke Kuechly and Andrew Luck. They're always rehabbing these injuries. They don't ever get a full off season, which really speaks to their incredible careers. Like like Luke Kuechly barely ever got a off season to like just train, and then he would just walk back out there behind physically because I know he took his training very seriously, but if you're recovering from a surgery or concussion and all that, you're behind in your training,
Sure.
and then he's still going to the Pro Bowl. So it's sad. I'm going to miss seeing him play. One of the all-time greats. Him and my boy Bobby Wagner, just dominating out there, and it was fun watching those two go back and forth.
Oh yeah, and just to wrap up your playing days here, did you see in 2010 as Pete Carroll comes in your last year in the team, drafting guys like Earl Thomas, Cam Chancellor? Did you see anything like, hey, Pete's here, he's getting his guys again, he's going to be able to do exactly what he did in college back now in the NFL?
Oh man, I saw the culture changing again, and it was great. It was needed, and it was yeah, that draft, man. Him and John Schneider, man, they put together a draft for the ages, and then 11 and 12 were phenomenal as well. You look at potential Hall of Famers in 12, like Bobby and Russell Wilson, and then 11 you got KJ Wright, and then Richard Sherman. Some people have heard of him. But in 2010, when I watched that class get on the field, it was incredible. Russell Okung, Pro Bowler, Earl Thomas, potential Hall of Famer, Cam Chancellor, Golden Tate, Walter Thurman. If he never hurts his knee, he goes to a couple Pro Bowls. Walter was amazing. And then in the 7th round, we had Dexter Davis. He was the Pac-10 player, Pac-12 player of the year. And he was going to be a real player. And then he hurt his hip, unfortunately. But that looked like the steal of the draft to me.
Wow. So ultimately, though, 2010, you see these guys come in. You're not able to be on the field with them as, Pete's vision comes a full circle again. How hard was it you to actually say goodbye? And I know in 2012 you had second thoughts about it coming back with the Falcons, but stepping away from the game, how difficult was it for you to actually make that call?
Oh, it's tough. I don't care if you go out with a Super Bowl win, like some of the greats, we're blessed to do. It's tough, man. Because again, I think this is the toughest part for athletes in the transition is that a lot of our whole life of this. And so it's not that, I don't know what to do after. It's that, and it's not even like letting go. It's like knowing that, oh man, the dream is over and it's time to set your sights on a new dream. And so the transition's tough. But, and I guess if you want to go into it, we can start with what I'm doing now because
of course.
My new dream is helping people. And, in that, several years ago, when I retired and I was done coaching, I had heard about CBD and I just kept hearing rumblings. This was probably like 2012 or 13 when I was done playing. And I heard about stories about how it was just helping people. And I was like, man, that's interesting. But I hadn't heard of any stories that related to me. There was one, Charlotte's Web, a famous brand. Their story, centers around epilepsy and a young girl that it really benefited. And so I couldn't draw the connection to how it could help me. But then I kept going, and I'm around here, and it's bigger and bigger. And you're hearing about probably till 2015, 2016 when I was coaching. So towards the end of 2016, I just started taking it. And I was still on the fence. I was like, I don't really feel any different. And, and then I found one that was just one of the best formulations I've ever seen. And so I was like, wow, I don't know what it is, but I feel different. Like, I feel like the old Lofa's coming back, like superhuman. And like, that was, beyond eye-opening. At the time, I was 280 pounds. I had tried to keep up in shape. Like I had, a good couple weeks of, eating right and everything, but the pain was just too severe in my knees, in my joints, everything. And so I just stopped working out. And then, even just getting out of bed was a process, and like each morning. And I'm like, man, I'm only 35. This is tough. This is bad. So with that in mind, when I found one that worked, the first thing I noticed was like I just started feeling like myself again. And then the inflammation went down, and then I started getting out of bed. I'm like, it used to take me a long time to get out of bed just because I didn't want to. I have sleep apnea, and I was like, no, man, I want to stay in bed. Now I was waking up like eyes open, like, okay, I get to get out of bed. So it's that mindset shift to just me feeling like my best. So I started going to the gym. Next thing you know, I knocked off 40 pounds, 50 pounds. I'm 235 and I'm dunking a basketball again. And I haven't done that since I was 19. When I was 19, and that was 4 knee surgeries ago, I was 210 pounds. So I wasn't, carrying an extra 25 pounds of muscle. So it's just with that eye-opening experience, I just started buying it and handing out to friends that I knew were going through the similar, struggles and pains and, everyday thing. And I just started watching them come back to like the best they ever been. And so with that in mind, when the Farm Bill passed in 2018, um, you know, we put together Zonein CBD, and we've just been on a mission to help people. And I'm just gonna, I'm blessed to be doing what I'm doing. The emails, the calls, the texts that I get, it gives me strength, especially at a time like now, knowing that we're helping people.
Oh yeah, and the fact that you decided to start your own brand, right? Because I feel like it was kind of in vogue in the last year or two for guys to be ambassadors or kind of latch onto something. But you said, no, 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 it's my show. I'm sure you want the very best formula, the formula that really opened your eyes to it, and you're putting out the very best stuff that you can.
My name's on it, man. That's why we only have 3 products. It took me 7 months to find a muscle rub that I believe in. I tried everything else out there, and I was like, "Yo, this no." Like, my team was mad at me too. They were like, and I was like, "This isn't your face. Like, your name's not attached to it the way mine is." And like I said to you, if I'm gonna do something, it's only gonna be quality. It's only gonna be the best. And so, I'll add a product when, I either hear that it's changing someone's life, or, because, I don't think people need like CBD gum or,
Right.
and that's why we only have 2 products right now, is to, because we want to help, implement into your life and help you, rather than you change who you are to be, with our brand. And just it's something that can, add to your game. And I'm telling you, like, the recovery, I mean, I haven't put a squat rack on my back, or a bar on my back in years. And I put 405 up twice the other day. And then I played 2 hours of basketball the next day. And my boy who lives with me, he's like 30. I'm not going to say his name. I won't throw him on the bus. But he didn't show up to hoops. And I was like, yo, bro, you're only 30 years old. He's like, he went into social distancing, long before it was, mandated.
Now, you've only Zonein has only been around for a year, less than a year.
Yeah, we had our big launch in October. We have, there's so many processes in place, just to get to actually selling a product, that, it delayed probably, because we were originally scheduled for a June launch last year. And so that there's, some hoops you got to jump through, and to make sure you're in compliance. And that's the biggest thing is, the lab we partnered with, on top of having the best formulation I've ever had, because I've been using CBD for 3 years now, and this is the best one in my, humble opinion. And they are FDA approved facility, so they get audited by the FDA twice a year. CGMP certified. I went down to the lab, checked everything out, all the processes. It's amazing. And then also RX certified, meaning pharmaceutical grade. So they're not messing around. They check all the compliance boxes. And that's the biggest thing, is there's a lot of products out there that, they don't have what's on the label in the actual bottle. And so it gives, we're already fighting a stigma, right? Of what it is and what it isn't. And it's derived from hemp. It's, fully legal, federally legal as of 2018. And yeah, I mean, that's just I've seen tremendous strides in people becoming their best selves, and even Zonein, it's derived from flow state and positive psychology, meaning the zone. And
Absolutely.
everybody knows about the zone.
Of course.
Everybody wants to be in the zone.
Yeah, you lived in the zone for a couple of years. Some of us are still trying to get there.
I'm
But
getting back to it.
now, this is not just for athletes, correct?
No, I mean, largely, we got a bunch of athletes on board. Um, but, the stories, and like, it's tough because you want to walk a fine line and be respectful of the FDA. You don't want them, sending you a warning letter because you can't make claims. But man, and I wish I had this when I was playing, because not just from the recovery standpoint of being able to just come back from those injuries quicker, but the mental aspect of it, the mental clarity, and because what I can say is it supports healthy cortisol levels. So cortisol is the hormone that's released when we are stressed. So if you have that in check, and like I said, my reaction to stress back in the day was to eat. So, and with that, shut off or regulated, or supported in a healthy way, my stress levels, I don't get in my own way. And I don't go back to those habits of eating 5 plates. I stay zoned in on the moment.
I love it. Well, where can everyone find Zonein?
So we're online e-commerce, zoneincbd.com. And we just donated 51,000 meals to to national food banks. So doing our part, because it's easy to give back when times are good, right? But when times are tough, this is when people need the help the most. And like I said, we started with a mission to help people, and so we're doing it. And also, $5 from every product sold at Zonein CBD goes to Food Lifeline, and it supports families in needs.
That's awesome. That's a true testament to character and what you stand for when you do something like that when times are tough. So thank you for what you're doing, in your community. And obviously, what Zonein's going to be doing for the larger community, I'm sure is really going to change some lives.
My man, I appreciate you having me. You stay blessed.
Hey, Lofa, before you jump, one last one. I know, like, I end on the gauntlet. We got kind of a little short on time, so just real quick, the most important question in the gauntlet is, what's the best piece of advice that you'd give to a young athlete?
Best piece of advice. Just always have belief in yourself. I know there's going to be tough times, man. There's going to be adversity. Not wavering when someone tells you, you'll never make it. If I were to listen to those people back in the day, I never would have had a chance. Just believe in yourself and chase your passion, I would say, because when you do that, you don't feel like you're working. You're going. Your vision is clear when you're chasing your passion. You love it. You love what you're doing, and so, like they say, you won't work a day in your life. You're still going to be putting in work, but I'm blessed to say this, and to tie Zonein again. Like, my new passion is helping people. I mean, I've always had that as a passion. I've always helped as many people as I can. I just believe that's what our highest purpose on this earth is to do. But now I get to do that, and so that my advice would be, yeah, believe in yourself and chase your passion.
Awesome. Lofa, thank you so much for taking the time. Can't wait to see what's happening with Zonein in the future. Best wishes.
All right, my man. We'll do a follow-up later. Stay blessed.